Egypt's ancient boy king Tutankhamun lived a short life, but his legend is still evolving. Although the Cairo Museum was looted earlier this year, there are now plans for a grand new museum. It'll be partly financed by a world tour of objects from Tutankhamun's tomb and other ancient sites. After a sellout season in the US and Europe, the exhibition opens at Melbourne Museum on Friday. Lisa Whitehead reports.
During anti-government protests in January, looters broke into the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, destroying 2 mummies and stealing 8 precious artefacts.
People who stole the antiquities, you will understand, they are faceless, they have no heart.
I was very sorry to learn that so many artifacts had been taken, but already many of them have been returned, which is very good news.
The University of Pennsylvania's Dr. David Silverman is an expert in Egyptology.
This is the first time that the CT scan machine will look inside the mummy.
Dr. Zahi Hawass was one of his first PhD students. He's now Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Both men are working to protect and conserve Egypt's precious artefacts and to bring the story of the most famous pharaoh of all, Tutankhamun, to the world. The fascination began in 1922 with the archaeological find of the century by Englishman Howard Carter in Egypt's Valley of the Kings.
It's a wonderful story. Hollywood probably could not write it. It's the tomb of a young boy, and it's in a time period of Egyptian history that we don't know very much about. So the excitement there is we're going to learn all this new incredible information. So that in itself was pretty exciting too. And then there's gold.
Some of the most precious 3,000-year-old artefacts will never leave Egypt again. But more than 50 objects buried with Tutankhamun and 80 others from the period are touring the world. In the past 5 years, this exhibition has drawn more than 7 million visitors. Its success crucial to Dr. Hawass's conservation work in Egypt.
Our exhibition and exhibitions like it bring back revenue to the country, which then in turn gets put to building the brand new Grand Museum at Giza near the pyramids, and that will hold over 100,000 artifacts.
1.5 million people queued for hours to see the treasures of the boy king.
Dr. Silverman was the curator of the first Tutankhamun exhibition in the 1970s, which broke all attendance records.
I like to say that the first time the world saw King Tut, this time he's returned and he's brought his family too.
The objects in the exhibition reflect the 18th dynasty Egyptians' obsession with death and the afterlife.
The burial includes a lot of things that he used in this life. They assumed he would want to take on into the next life, like the wonderful little chair that he sat in when he was about 3 or 4 years old.
It's thought Tutankhamun was only 9 when he assumed the throne, at a time when the kingdom was in crisis. But his reign was short. He was dead at 19. Tutankhamun's organs were mummified and placed in separate mini coffins. This one held his liver. The small mummies of 2 stillborn baby girls were also found in his tomb. DNA testing and CT scans of the mummies by National Geographic confirmed he was likely to be the father. They also helped fill in the gaps in his family tree. The baby's mother was his half-sister, the daughter of Queen Nefertiti. The CT scans of the boy king's mummy also solved one of the great mysteries. Was he murdered by a blow to the head, or was his death an accident?
There was absolutely no evidence of trauma to his skull, and so we eliminated one of the suggested causes of his death, and we also discovered something that had not been known up until that point, and that is that he had suffered a serious fracture of his left femur. In fact, so serious that essentially his kneecap had been blown off, And the forensic scientists told us that this fracture occurred sometime within, say, 24 hours to 5 days of his death.
Tut's tomb had more than 100 different sticks and staffs that he could have used because he may have been somewhat lame.
So what about the famous curse said to strike down all those who entered his tomb?
You always have to be careful what you say, but we do know that the curse that everyone talks about, that was in the newspapers when the discovery of the tomb was made, was not actually true at all. But there are actually curses in the tomb itself, and they're on what are called magical bricks. And we have a magical brick in the exhibition, and I hope that everybody comes to see it, because you can find out what a real curse is like from ancient Egypt.
Lisa Whitehead.